I heard it was great success.
Huge success.
Tell us about that concert.
Well, not only
How
did the music,
how the audience received
well,
that.
not only did the music succeed, but the audience absolutely responded to every piece of music. Hotel Ritz is 12 movements at least, probably maybe even a 13th. But she played extremely well. I played extremely well. It was a Steinway piano. It was a beautiful cathedral. And what really struck me was how people responded to each one of the movements, because Hotel Ritz is a portrait of the personalities of the people who lived during the Second World War at the Ritz. People like, obviously, Coco Chanel and Arletty, the great film actress, and so many others. There's the dominating figure, even though he wasn't there during the occupation, is Hemingway. So these are a series of portraits that tell the story. The first portrait, for example, is the Countess Castiglione. Castiglione is the village my father came from in Sicily. And this woman, really weird lady.
Which way?
Well, she lived on the Place Vendôme, which was really close to what was to become the Ritz. And she died just before the Ritz opened. And she was a very beautiful woman. She was the mistress of Napoleon III. But she got to the point where she became so eccentric that she kind of became a loner or a recluse. And she never left her apartment except at night. And she would wear masks, not to show her face, for example. She would not let any sun into the room. It was really weird behavior.
Okay.
But I wanted to paint a portrait of someone who lived by the Ritz but couldn't go in it. And so that's mostly all of us, because it is such an exclusive
Did she want
place.
to go?
Of course, but she died. I mean, we would all like to spend a couple of nights at the Ritz, but you can't afford it. It's an absurd amount of money. And
so this is a person not successful.
She was very successful, but she happened to die.
She happened to die before the Ritz opened.
Just as the Ritz was open. So then there's the portraits, of course, of Coco Chanel and also the people who work there.
By the way, previous piece, how you want to process this person who want to be a loner? How you process that music? Like
that's interesting, because
I know you have celebrities, you have Hemingway,
right?
But for someone like person who doesn't want to be in spotlight, how you process your music?
It's intimate. She lives in a fantasy world, so the music's very cinematic. She obviously still lives in a fantasy world.
After this interview, we can hear a little bit about that piece.
In fact, most of her life, when you think about it, was lived in a fantasy world. She had many lovers. She married into nobility and divorced within a year. She had one child from the marriage, but she divorced within a year because she was out having affairs. So I don't know where she had time to have a baby and have affairs, but this woman was quite a gal. Oh, and the thing is, she was a pioneer of photography. So there was all this, around her.
I should put some her work in this video.
Yeah, why not? You should show pictures of her.
Yeah,
really.
Right.
And also, the second piece draws from a previous work of mine, which was a theater piece, Mother Courage. And I repurposed it for this story, tell the story. And it's called No Time for Fashion. People said, why did Coco Chanel close her salon at the beginning of the occupation of the Germans in the Second World War? And her response was, well, this is no time for fashion. And then there's a beautiful movement about Coco Chanel, who, by the way, was a terribly awful human being. She turned in all of her Jewish business partners and claimed control of her company. She was not just a collaborator. She was the lover of a German high command, and she was also passing intelligence to.
Did she happen to believe Jesus?
That's a good question.
You don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
But she was arrested afterwards, and she would have been punished. She would have been possibly executed because she was a spy. But Winston Churchill intervened on her behalf because his wife liked her cologne.
I feel like those period of time is like cats out, let rats
Without
play.
a doubt. Without a doubt.
Let's play. The whole world is upside down.
I think people were really actually excited about. I remember talking to people who lived through the invasion, and they told me point blank that they felt like it was the best years of their lives because as dangerous as it was, they felt alive. You know,
that give you introspect about our normal life.
Well, there's normal people in this piece.
Right.
There's Claude and Blanche. They were there's a portrait of them. They were basically the butler and the maid. They were the head butler, head maid. They ran the Ritz, but they were also spying for the resistance, and they didn't know it. They didn't know each other was a spy. That's how careful people had to be. They ended up committing
I feel like the way you described them, I just feel like this is a game. This all the people.
It's all a game.
Treated like
it was, but it was a deadly game.
Yeah.
But they ended up committing suicide together. After the war, much later.
Maybe they felt life is boring.
You just don't know. You don't know. Very complex. I also write a piece about the door. The door to the Ritz, because it's this revolving door, right? And I kept on thinking,
what's the name of that piece?
La porte bienvenue.
What's the English
which means
name?
the door welcome.
Okay.
It just keeps spinning.
It's very symbolic, right?
Yeah, because at one point the French are coming in, and then the Germans are coming in, and then the Americans are coming in. Then the French, but the door keeps on revolving.
Right.
The Ritz was not damaged during the war. And it was used by Hermann Goering as his headquarters. And there's a piece about Hermann Goering in it, called Das Leben, which is kind of a little bit ironic because it's, Goering killed a lot of people. Right? He's a mass murderer. He was also a massive anti-Semite. But the thing is, his godparents were Jewish. After the Pushing in the early 1920s, he escaped and went to Vienna, and he was protected by his Jewish godparents. And so we named it Das Leben, but it's a very famous phrase in Yiddish is L'chaim, which means to life. So I actually gave that title to Goering's piece because I wanted to show just how sick and ironic and how evil you have to become to hate the very people who saved your life and took care of you and nurtured you. So there's that kind of thing.
But there's a story I want to tell you. Like, there's a guy, an old man who had a beautiful daughter, right? But he's able to marry his daughter to two guys. One young man saved his life, and one other young man. He saved that young man's life.
Right.
Do you know who he married her daughter to?
No, I would be curious. Which one?
The person who he saved, not saved him.
Right.
Regularly, you would say, "Hey, you did me a favor. You saved my life.
No.
You to marry." No.
Because that person would take care. Yeah.
I was just like what you said, like.
But Goering was ass backwards. He was also an art theft. He was an art thief of the supreme order, man. In fact, the reason why
you seem interested in all this art thief. What about it?
Well, because
why art thief? Why not watch thief?
Watch thief. Art theft is one of the most intriguing subject matters, and I probably will write a piece about it at some point. I'm actually Facebook friends with Wolfgang Beltracchi, who is one of the greatest forgers.
You have a salon called Salon Bouvier.
That's right.
He's art thief, right?
No, he's an art dealer who was indicted on all kinds of RICO charges.
Art-related criminal.
But Goering was an art-related criminal. In fact, one of the books that I used as a reference for the piece is called The Rape of Europa, which talks about how the Germans just devastated the art collections of private owners, including especially Jewish ones.
So, do you generally inspired by the personality of those characters?
All the time.
Why? How so?
Because I work so much in the theater.
Those are more theatrical.
Yeah, I work so much in the theater, and that that's a big part of it.
What kind of figure, like what kind of a job when you receive, do you feel like there's no inspiration normally. Like, what kind of piece when you received?
Well, to
you
be
feel-
honest with you,
Yeah.
pieces that are activist. I despise propaganda. So, Oh God, Beautiful Machine was not an activist piece. I could write about the climate, because it wasn't an activist piece. It was a piece, as Youssef put it, was how do we relate to this apparatus? How do we relate to our environment? And I was all for that.
I think you're kind of like connected in a spiritual way.
Yes, of course. Which is why, I was able to work with Youssef on it, because he immediately recognized that there was this kind of divine through line. But see, this is a piece. It's funny because I don't. I try not to say that all my work is political, but the reality is that everything I write, it becomes political anyway, because I'm dealing with history. I'm dealing with human subjects. The new theatrical piece, Echoes of the Great Migration, is very political. Why? But it's a history, and it talks about the history of African Americans migrating to the North in the 1920s and 30s. That, by its very nature, is going to be political. But my intention is not political. My intention is to tell a story.
It's inescapable for artists to be in the world that
right.
You have to
But Hotel Ritz is very political.
Very political.
But it's not my intention to be political. But to say, to say that I'm going to name the piece about Hermann Goering in German, the German translation of a very popular Yiddish phrase, is a political statement. It's not necessarily a political statement on one side or the other. It's just saying, isn't this weird? This kind of thing. Arletty's also a very important figure in this, because she was a very famous film actress whose life and whose career was really destroyed by the occupation. Though she made her greatest film after the occupation.
She also arrested and then
yes, she was. She was
Churchill was
Churchill intervened. But her greatest film, L'Enfant de Paradis, was easily her greatest film, and but after that she disappeared. But she lived a very long life.
Why do you just tell me one reason you like that film?
Oh my God, the story is incredible. The beauty of the cinematography. It's in black and white, yet it's beautiful. It has color even in black and white, and it is just but you can't watch it in one sitting. You have to see it in drips and drabs, because it's just a very heavy film. But she's even at that part of her life, she was still very beautiful. She had when she was arrested, they asked her, how dare you collaborate with the Germans, and you're sleeping with this German, and her response was, my heart is French, but my ass is international. So the piece that I wrote for her is just called Arletty, but I was thinking about renaming it either The Elegance I Seek, which was something that she said, but I don't want to call it My Ass is International. I think that would be a little ridiculous. So it might just stay Arletty.
If you live in that same time of like her time, like you bump into her. Yeah. What question you want to ask her? What conversation?
There would be, that is a great question, and there'd be none, because you couldn't trust anybody. You couldn't trust anyone. It was a terrifying time, and people were put into two very difficult choices. You either sided with the fascists or you sided with the communists, and at that point, you're talking about who's not going to kill me. So, if I was in Spain, for example, during the revolution, I probably, being born and raised Catholic, I would probably side with Franco, because Franco wasn't killing me, whereas the communists were killing priests left and right. But if I'm a communist, I'm going to side with the Republic, because Franco's going to kill me, So that spread really throughout Europe. And I'm also convinced that the rise of fascism was because of the failure of the left. The left was such a level of failure in France and in Germany and in Italy that people were willing to give themselves and their countries over to people who promised them things that in the end led to mass death.
When you develop this piece, what is your process?
Well, when I developed it, I was working with a playwright, so I would receive the lyric.
Okay,
and
you
then
start
I would
with the
respond.
lyric,
Right? But
So-
now it has no
okay.
lyrics; it's an
so that
instrumental work.
lyrics give you sense of musical.
Yeah, the lyrics told me something about the people I was writing about.
I see.
The playwright is Migdalia Cruz, and Migdalia has a deep psychological understanding of her characters. She knows how to go into those places.
Right.
I'm trying to think of a really good example, but
Do you still remember the lyrics, like one?
not really.
Okay.
Not really.
I'd be interested to know.
Yeah,
If
I've
you
had
read
to
the
remove them
lyrics-
though.
I know you removed it but this music was generated.
Yeah, but I had to
originally.
remove them from here because I'm
Yeah.
developing an instrumental work that's orchestral. So
Okay,
now it can't be designed just by songs. By the way, I'm telling the story of the RITZ Hotel during the Second World War through the imagination of a Cuban playwright, if that makes sense. So there's Cuban music, there's all this Latin music. Like there's one piece called Amor Divino,
Right.
and Love Divine, right? In which there's this very common Cuban, little thing, because it describes Hemingway's absolute desire to get to the Ritz so that he could have sex with his lover before his wife gets there. So I played this Cuban music, which represents the Cuban band, right? And so every now and then, just as they're ready to meet, the Cuban band comes in. Like he keeps on getting interrupted, which is exactly what happened. He ended up getting to the Ritz before everybody else. He ended up liberating the wine cellar. He ended up meeting his lover, and he ended up falling asleep.
It reminded me, if you're in a dream,
Yeah.
like you feel like you want to go pee, right?
Right.
You obviously interrupted by something.
I know, it's just,
and then you wake up, you're so lucky you didn't be interrupted.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I mean, and then the piece about Hemingway actually bears the title of the Ritz Hotel. It was something you said to me that I thought was really interesting, that you saw a documentary on Hemingway, and that the Ritz wasn't a big part of his life. It was at a particular time, but he is a big part of its life. And I think that that's something to say about Hemingway himself, that he's a giant in so many different ways. He dominates just by his name dominates.
I remember that in that documentary, they mentioned that when he was in Paris, like whenever he entered into the room, into the cafeteria, like there's a whole bunch of people.
Everybody shuts up.
It's like the whole atmosphere is different.
Totally
Once this guy
That's
entered, is that interesting?
He's powerful.
Yeah, so he doesn't need to say anything.
He's powerful. He's so powerful. I mean, there are 3 pieces that are about him, and none of them bear his name. I think there's another really interesting piece that I was really fascinated by the level of sex that was going on between the French and the Germans. I remember reading where, look, these things happen in war, but there was this very, very famous brothel that was close to the Paris Opera. Oh no, it was close to the Louvre. And there was a courtesan named Lucy Dubois, who also lived a very long life, But Lucy was recruited by the resistance, and she would service these very high-level German generals. And in that service, she would get them at moments when they were very vulnerable, because this brothel was a restaurant, it was an entertainment center, there was alcohol, and she would get information, and then she would pass it on to resistance, like troop movements, but also the movements of prisoners and so forth. And her actions actually saved thousands of lives. And she was also arrested. But the members of the resistance came in and gave testimony for her. But she lived a very, very, very long life, But see, somebody like Lucy Dubois is one of those people that nobody knows about,
Mm-hmm.
who was actually a
Mm.
hero.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
So those are also people that are very interesting, not just the celebrities.
Mm.
There are three pieces that I feel like I have to address, and I don't know whether I'll address them all.
Mm-hmm.
One is Josephine Baker. She was the
Mm-hmm.
American
Mm-hmm.
entertainer, and she was also a spy for the resistance.
Mm-hmm.
She was not living at the Ritz. She had left Paris during the occupation,
Mm-hmm.
but she had a connection to the Ritz. She actually got married at the Ritz.
Mm-hmm.
The other is the authors. There were many, many great authors that
Mm-hmm.
that, like for example, Sartre wrote his great novel at the Ritz.
Oh, really?
So I want to kind of address the authors, Cocteau, all of those people in one idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is the Day of Liberation. I did write a piece called "At Least We Have Paris." At least, well, we still have Paris. I think it is, or we still have Paris, which was a quote of Hemingway.
Mm.
But it's a very sad piece because I felt like the liberation itself was bittersweet, because what happened after the liberation was chaos. I mean, anger, rage. You know, it was like the French Revolution, people being executed left and right. It was people being arrested, women being shamed. It was pretty bad, you know. And the thing was the war wasn't over. You know, the war, Paris is liberated, but the war wasn't over. And 25 kilometers from Paris, people were dying. And there's something very sad about that, you know. But there's one movement that this incredible scene. Tens of thousands of people met at the churches during the liberation. And you know, they were ringing the bells in the churches, you know, and everything, and people were praying and everything. But there were still German snipers, and they were killing people. They were sniping at these crowds. And a lot of times people couldn't hear the gunshots because of the bells. But when they realized that they were being shot at, they were cowardly. Finally, there was this unknown woman, we don't know her name. She stood up and just made herself a target. She wasn't shot, but she like defied them, said, you know, I have had enough of being on my knees. And she stood up. And that's the thing that's really fascinating.
And that woman, you don't know.
We don't know, no. But the thing that's really fascinating about the story, as powerful as the men were at that time, it was the women that there were so many courageous women. There was Lee Miller, Martha Gellhorn. There were American women who were living in Paris at the time, who were running businesses. There were incredible female characters who showed just extraordinary resilience and bravery. You know, we tend to ignore them in history.
I feel like I've never lived in Paris. I feel like I'm missing a big part of.
I love Paris.
Is that right?
Oh God, do I love Paris? Yeah, I love Paris.
I heard many stories like the young artists. They went to Paris. They started there. You know, they start meeting people left and right and being
all the time.
Educated,
yeah.
Opened their mind up.
Yeah.
You know, they're very well received.
I think about moments in my time in Paris and all the times that I visited Paris. Being in my bedroom and opening up the window and just hearing the sounds of the city at night.
You just feel different air.
It's just different. It's unlike any city in the world. And at the same time, I love Berlin. Like, Berlin is a fabulous city. This story actually starts in Berlin, you know, not just because the Germans invaded, but because really there is a vicious umbilical cord between the German Weimar Republic and the French. And it's a fascinating piece, but it's very theatrical, very accessible. You know, it's very song-like. You know, and I think people are going to love it, man.
Great.
Yeah, it's great. Nice talking to you.